Hello and welcome to another episode of What Happens in Marketing, the podcast where we peel back the curtain and allow you to be able to come back and hear some of the stories behind the marketing efforts here in Las Vegas. I'm Tom Heaton, president of the Las Vegas Innovation Marketing Association. I'm excited to have a great conversation today as we bring one of the creative minds here in town to be able to come talk to us about the process behind some of these great creative campaigns that are driving visitors to Las Vegas and beyond. I'm here and proud to welcome Guto Araki, the creative director of R&R Partners. Guto, welcome to the show.
It's great to be here, Tom. That's awesome. Thank you.
You've got some great work in your portfolio. You've done amazing commercials for Taco Bell, big brands, Gatorade, things like that we've seen in the past. What got you to choose to come to R&R and bring all that talent that you've had here in town?
Well, it's interesting, right? Like I'm an alumni of like network agencies. My entire career, I worked for agencies that belong to other agencies, and obviously, like the industry is like that because like these big network companies, they just go after the agencies that like output the best work, but in the end of the day, what happens to all these agencies that they just become a part of a bigger business maneuver, and they tend to lose a little bit of like the purity of creativity. So like you don't know what you don't know. As I said, I always worked for network agencies, and then as I became my career evolved to the position of executive creative director, that's when I started participating more and more into more of like, the business conversations. And I must say, Tom, like at that point, then I think that it's, things you start seeing the matrix. Mm-hmm. Like, I think that when you join an agency as a creative, every agency has like a mission, but when you get to that level, you start to understand what is the actual business of the agency. Mm-hmm. And you start realizing that the mission is a little bit like internal storytelling and not an actual mission. And not to, obviously not to bash on any agency or any network, but, most of these networks, they are public companies. Mm-hmm. So if an agency belongs to a network agency, it's hard to believe that they actually have a mission or a purpose, because once you're a public company, there's only one mission, and it is to be profitable. And to be profitable, you need to charge the most of your clients and pay the least possible to your people. And so like all the romantic aspect of creative in advertising, it gets, it gets tainted, not to say like lost completely. So when I first met Billy Valiciades and the entire R&R team, obviously they're like incredible people, but I think that one thing that made me very interested in the possibility of like, okay, let's work with an independent agency, mm-hmm. an agency that has full autonomy to do whatever they want, and for that reason to be more authentic. Mm-hmm. Like, I was very curious to know what would that look like.
Yeah, and I think it really plays in well with the work that you've done. That authenticity really comes through in the work that I've seen, and I'm sure our members have seen with some of the commercials that have been out there on TV, on Hulu, et cetera. I would ask you, as part of that, what would you say was the most challenging campaign that you've put together so far that we may be familiar with?
Look, you pinched my nerve over there with authenticity. Like I repeat that all the time to my team, that like you skip competition through authenticity. Like authenticity is not just like a sexy word for you to throw in a conversation. Like authenticity is the edge, is the moat, and the reason why is because you escape competition through authenticity is the sheer fact that no one's better than you at being you. Like you are the best in the world at being Tom. You
Yep.
know, like anyone who tries to mimic, they will fail miserably, right?
Yeah.
But answering your question, I think that like I wouldn't say the most challenging, but definitely the most interesting work I had the privilege to participate was the what we call the sellouts campaign for Hulu, which
Hmm.
became famous with the line Hulu has live sports. And the story behind that is fascinating because it's rooted in authenticity, but it came from a very contentious situation. So the situation was that Hulu had identified that the main driver for subscribers for the live product was sports. Like if you
Hmm.
think about it, like the only reason why you care about live TV is sports and news, but most people just like read the news, on their phones. Like they don't watch the news from linear TV. Like so sports was the thing. But sports culture is a very tight knit, like club. Like it's
Hmm.
hard to break into sports culture. So the notion was, okay, maybe if we spend a lot of money with endorsement with big names in sports, we can pierce through. But they were struggling. Like, okay, what is the concept? What can we say that will feel, like that we it's our turn to say something in sports
Hmm.
culture? And then they were working with another agency, another famous agency, and they kept on, like missing it. And I had this meeting with execs at Hulu, and this person who's like a brilliant brand person, he came to me and he's like, "Look, here's the situation. We need to come up with something because we already paid a lot of money to all these celebrities."
Hmm.
And we're like, "Well, that's your campaign right there. Just tell the world that you paid a lot of money to these celebrities."
That's awesome. And then that was it.
And that was it. So like the campaign is basically like the debut commercial was Joel Embiid,
Hmm.
saying like, uh, why did I change my name? Because of money. And then an iconic Instagram post of Damian Lillard. It's like he's saying like, why am I on a sponsor post for Hulu? Because they paid me. and then, and that was that was so it worked so well for us. But one thing that was interesting, and I think that like like success, there's always like a fair share of luck that
Yeah.
we didn't predict, is that in basketball culture we call hoops culture, right? Like in
Hmm.
basketball culture, um, the ostentation is a huge part of it, right?
Yeah.
Like you see like hip hop artists and NBA players, like they always rolling into like Rolls Royces and using some limited edition, like off-white Jordan or something like that. So to ostentate was part of culture is something that like these celebrities, especially like basketball celebrities, they love doing it.
Yeah.
So at first, once we had the idea, everybody obviously were very uncomfortable because like how are we gonna say that? Well, it turns out that these celebrities, they just loved to tell the world that they were getting paid a lot of money because it was some sort of a flex that
Yeah.
the kids would love it. So that was like incredibly interesting.
Yeah,
Um,
so it played right into the culture there. Yeah, it's fun how those things will work out with the most successful campaigns. It seems like there's always maybe a little bit of luck. I don't know how many times I've sat in like agency meetings and things like that where we hear the lamenting of clients. Oh yeah, just make this go viral, and people don't understand the luck that it takes to make something go viral necessarily, but it's all the hard work that goes into it to be able to be good at what you do and good enough so that when luck does strike, you're ready
ab-
and you're ready to go with it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's awesome. So I'm curious too. Do you have a favorite campaign of all the campaigns that maybe outside of that one you just mentioned? Of all the things you've ever
Um,
worked on, what's your favorite?
well, campaigns that I've worked on, or campaigns that I love that I had nothing to do with it.
You know, let's hear both. Yeah, I mean, I'd be curious to hear.
Um, yeah, like so definitely I think that like the Hulu campaign was definitely uh the most special. And again, it wasn't just like a one off. Like we carry the entire brand for I carried the entire brand for 4 years, and during that time we transformed their business. Like Hulu, when we first touched the brand, Hulu existed for 10 years. They had around like 20, almost 21 million subscribers. We took their business to 30 million subscribers in 2 years.
Wow.
We won Lions in Cannes in the first year. We definitely had like, a lot of influence in the success of the brand. So, and for many other reasons, and again, like the year two of the campaign, we saw that a lot of other brands were mimicking what we're doing in terms of like tone and message.
Mm-hmm.
By year three, when we used Tom Brady in the Super Bowl commercial, the campaign, Hulu, Hulu was indexing so high in sports that we actually had to course correct. So like basically like we got the brand is like, hey, we have no business in sports. How we fix that? 3 years in, we're like, hey, now people only associate Hulu with sports. How we can fix that?
Yeah.
And then he culminated with the Tom Brady commercial where he's basically saying Hulu doesn't just have live sports.
Right. Yeah, so you did such a good job that you had to steer it back. That's
exactly.
Awesome.
We had to we overcorrected. So for many reasons, I think that like probably like the brand, I wouldn't even say campaign, but just like the partnership between brand and agency, that was the most important in my career was definitely Hulu. Now, I had the privilege also to work with incredible creative directors, through my life. Jason Bagley is a quintessential creative. He was the man behind the Isaiah Mustafa Old Spice work, and
great
then
commercials. Yeah,
great commercials. And we know we are really good friends. So when I look at his work, and I'm gonna say this is gonna be a little bit mad at me. He's slightly older than me, so like it's okay for me to look up to him, which I do. But I always loved like the way Jason and I think that if one day you have the chance to meet him, you get what I'm saying. Like he is just this very honest, very transparent person, and although it can be jarring sometimes to some people, like what is the quote, and I might butcher it, like you can hate what he says, but you love him for saying it.
Yeah,
and I think that is like a quote that like if you think about it, like who are the people that they're not afraid of telling you the truth, and you end up finding out that it's mostly family because like you cannot shake them, like and then if you also ask yourself like who are the people that you love the most, it's also family, right? And then I think that what it does, that I think that it's a really good way to illustrate the power of like honesty and transparency, that although it might not sound the best idea at first, it's definitely the one device that you as a brand or a person can use to establish an immediate connection to earn the people's trust and respect. So when you look at, and again, it doesn't need to be earnest, right? Like, so I told you that I sometimes I go on tangents, but like, to answer your question, to answer your question, like, another campaign that I had nothing to do with it, but I appreciate a lot is like the entire Old Spice work, because like, like obviously like Old Spice is a brand that belongs to Procter and Gamble. Procter and Gamble is, a giant of the CPG space. They are interested in sales, right? So they're launching this deodorant, and it's for guys. So what guys want to hear about the deodorant? They want to hear that it fights BO. That's what they want to hear.
You're not going to stink, right?
Exactly. Like so I think Jason, like that work, you see like Jason goes like, okay, that's what we need to say, But then how can we be generous? How can we say it in a way that will entertain people? How
Hmm.
can we say it in a way that people, instead of being annoying for being interrupted by a commercial, that will make them laugh? And
Yeah.
so I think that that is, that if you look back, it's the strongest work. The strongest work always has. I think that, like, you hear from several creative directors that, oh, inside is everything, and it is everything,
Hmm.
but also the way you touch that subject is equally as important, if not more important.
Yeah, well, and it's great to kind of tie together the first two things we've talked about here. Basically, your ability to go and work with this independent agency where you can really help shape this culture and find a culture that matches your creative mind, and then this idea of authenticity and how the two of those things really blend together to be able to bring a culture that really feeds on authenticity and get everybody on the same page to be able to create great work. Those two things seem really hand in hand. Is that a fair statement from your review?
100%. Like, you're spot on. Um, I think that, like, like, let's talk about Vegas for a little bit,
Yeah,
because
absolutely. Yeah,
because I think that the recent Vegas work that we put out. Sorry, that's my baby in the background.
yeah, you're
Um,
all good, man. Yeah.
uh, so the recent work that we did for Vegas, I think that it's, to me, was um, a really important step. And I think
Mhm.
that, obviously, like, there is, I would say that we basically just, like, resuscitate a
Mhm.
lot of qualities that we had on the "What Happens Here Stays Here" campaign.
Mhm.
And then that campaign, "What Happens Here Stays Here," was so powerful because it spoke the truth, right? Like, it
Yeah.
spoke what there was, like, a very strong human insight over there, but the way it was delivered was also really special. And I think that it's, sometimes the way we communicate, the way we establish these connections, are completely counterintuitive. Like, one may argue that, like, hey, if I need to convince you to come and stay in my beautiful hotel, here's what I'm gonna do. I'm
Mhm.
gonna show you beautiful images of my pool, my spa, beautiful images of my restaurant, and you be excited by that, and you're gonna come. And it's not completely wrong, but what is wrong is to assume that is the only way to do it. And
Mhm.
when you look at, the "What Happens Here Stays Here" campaign, obviously, at a certain point, it evolved into showing the destination. But the most iconic pieces of that campaign were the commercials that didn't show Las Vegas at all,
Yeah.
but connected in the mindset of the people. So, fast forward to, years, I don't know, like over 10 years, I would say,
Mhm.
to what we're doing right now with this campaign that we're now calling the "Why Would You?"
Yeah.
And I think that, like, like, it was post pandemic, like, many things, happened to the destination. But when we wrote that campaign, we were thinking about how can we create a commercial to be launched during fall.
Mhm.
And the insight there, Tom, that we all fell in love with is that, um, summer is overrated. Like, mainly, I mean, like, I'm gonna put myself into the conversation a little bit, but, like, I have kids,
Yeah.
and during summer, here's, like, the naked reality that no
Mhm.
one seems compelled to talk about. Like, it's you trying to figure out camps to put your kids on. Your
Mhm.
kids are not in school, so they're running around the house, and you have to come up with things for them to do. And then, you have, like, family members flying in, staying in your house,
Mhm.
or, you're asked to go visit family members in obscure locations in the country,
Mhm.
or, or you're standing on a line, on a long line under the scalding heat, or you're
Mhm.
overpaying for parking. Like, summer is completely overrated. No one talks about it. The reality is, when summer ends, life goes back to normal.
Yeah.
In-laws go back to their house, kids go back to school, as you mentioned in the beginning of the
Yeah.
call,
Yep.
like, and people go, thank God. But
Yeah.
no one has touched this subject. And then so like we thought, hey, fall is when everything goes back to normal and the parents and the people can just take some time to themselves.
Yeah.
So that's when we wrote Storytime and Grounded, which were the two
Yep.
commercials that we launched, which was basically like, hey, like let's talk a little bit about that. The entire positioning was, again, it wasn't, anti kids or anti family,
Yeah.
but the idea was to create something that celebrate, the individual, like,
Yeah.
and they deserve this.
Right.
uh,
Yeah. I love the way you did that too. I mean, just the visualization, as we get into it, they've got, buildings full of dentists. It's just immediately, it's like, all right, yeah, that is something I could hear myself saying to my kids to get them completely uninterested in wherever I go. So yeah, that it's a brilliant way of doing that. And then also, yeah, you're right, a reward for the people that just went through 3 months of scheduling and interrupted meetings and everything else that comes along with the fun of summertime.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. Like, and reward is an interesting word because, like, we keep on dancing on our end, like, and it might be like, like a utopic objective, but like we always try to, like, hey, can we synthesize what Vegas is in one word? And
Yeah,
sometimes we think we get it, and then it's like, well, it's that too. But reward is very close to something that I keep on saying, and not everyone might agree with me, but like Vegas is, I like to say that Vegas is a category of one. There's no
yeah,
other city like Vegas in the world, I'm not saying when I say that Vegas is a category of one that only Vegas is a category of one, but
right.
Vegas is definitely a category of one. I would say like Dubai is also a category of
Yeah,
one, because what other place in the world, like, they create like man-made islands and put
right.
mansions on top of it, right? Like,
Yeah,
but like Vegas is definitely a category of one. And then the Vegas business is rooted in it's tourism and hospitality. But because we need to think, I always say that we need to think about Vegas being a category of one, so we don't fall into the cracks of making people compare Vegas with somewhere else. For
right.
example, like, if you talk about Vegas in a brochure-esque like manner, if you start saying like, hey, come to Vegas because we have incredible pools during the summer, for example,
Yeah.
then people is gonna start comparing the pools from Vegas with the ocean from the Dominican Republic or
Hmm.
whatever that is. And if you do this, if you enter in comparison mode, even if in the end of the day you win, you lose, because you are equating yourself to something else when you shouldn't, because Vegas is just, again, a one of a kind. So I think that it's, like, when we talk, when we think about going back to the word thing. So I like to think that Vegas not as a destination. I like to think Vegas as an indulgence. Like,
Mm. Yeah.
I think that most people, when they think about Vegas, they don't even think about a place. They just think about something for themselves, and
Right.
whatever that is. If it is to like spend the entire day in a spa, if it is to eat like a wagyu steak covered in gold leaves, if they think about, maybe just, playing poker, like 12 hours straight, whatever that
Yeah.
is, they're doing that for themselves. So it is this like indulgence. You use the word reward. I like reward a lot. You know,
Yeah.
so it's not a place. It's something that people aspire to have.
Yeah, that's great stuff there. And right now, we're going to take a quick break here, but I want to come back to this and I want to hear a little bit more about the process of how things are going. So stay with us here. We're going to take a quick break and then we'll be right back with Guto Araki. Welcome back to What Happens in Marketing. I'm Tom Heaton. I'm here with Guto Araki. We have been talking a lot about Vegas and the process, everything like that you've gone into it. And I'd love to deep dive into that a little bit more with you and help us understand what it is that your creative process looks like. How do you go from some of the research and some of the details and what the client wants to creating campaigns like what you were just describing with the Vegas campaign?
Um, I really hope I don't disappoint creatives who watch your show, Tom. But like, truth to be told, like it has to start with a crisp business objective.
Mhm.
And in our case, like Vegas was, it's obviously like visitation. Like how can we put like heads in beds, right? How
Mhm.
can we increase the number of visitors? But like I think that every great campaign starts with a crisp business objective. I do think that like sometimes brands go to agencies and they say like, oh, we need to create a commercial for the Super Bowl. Or they would say like, hey, we need to show the features of our new product. And those are not real business objectives.
Mhm.
Like what brands usually do, they try to pre-digest to the agency what they want to do, but they're usually wrong. Like, so for example, I'm going to use like, hey, we need to show the features of our product. They say that because they believe that by showing the features of the product, we'll end up with the most effective commercial. And that's
Mhm.
just not true. Like, so if you ask them like, hey, what is your business objective again, you know they're like, well, I just need to sell this product and I need to sell X amount of this product. And although it sounds less sexy, it's definitely more honest and more helpful to creatives, because then like we have like a blank canvas to think about what is the most compelling way to do that. But again, sorry, again, I tend to go in tangent.
Yeah.
So to answer your question, like, I think that the elements that I try to harness before we even start putting the pen in the paper is like client, brand, give me a crisp business objective.
Mhm.
It doesn't need to be very elaborate. And I'm sure that you have a lot of knowledge, and make no mistake, I'll ask for all that information. But right now, just tell me your business objective.
Mhm.
Then I think then we try to find what is the truth about that brand, what is the truth about either that product or that service. uh, and then the third and probably the most important one is what is the human inside. And then but the second one is it's probably like the fun part of the process, right? Because that's when you dig, like, um, when you fearlessly dig the truth about a product or a service. That's when you find the things, that the common ground to connect with people,
Mhm.
right? So, for example, like a great example, like, and one that I'm very familiar with after working so many years for Taco Bell, is that if you go on the internet, it's making jokes about like Taco Bell and diarrhea.
Mhm.
I mean, like that didn't come out of nowhere, right?
Right.
Like, like that was a collective, amount of people that like somewhere, somewhen, maybe on Reddit, they talked about it, and that became, a thing.
Mhm.
So like this is something that obviously it's completely off color and not appropriate for a food brand to talk about. But like, let's not ignore that there is a conversation about that. Here's another conversation about Taco Bell. Like, well, a lot of like stoner kids, or like kids after going partying, they go to Taco Bell. Well, that is a very interesting one to talk about, right?
Mhm.
So like on that mindset, like, what is the language, what is the visual, how could we like make people like they belong into that conversation.
Yeah.
So basically, like, the magic will happen in this in this Venn diagram of like, what is the business objective, what is the truth about this brand, and what is the truth about the people. And somewhere in there, you end up finding something that will result into a compelling campaign. Now, the funny part, now there are like trickery that we use along the process, and the one that I like the most is when I open, like, the computer, and I was like, okay, what are the most absurd things that I can say about this brand that I would never say.
Mhm.
And by doing that, it is a shortcut to get to a edgy, a provocative message, versus the other way around, versus like,
Mhm.
hey, what does this brand want to say and how do I make that edgy? So like you go in reverse. What is the
Yeah.
most absurd thing that you would never say, and
Hmm.
then you find a way to say that. And then,
Yeah.
why would you campaign is a great example, right? Like, why would you campaign is like, the truth is just like, like, who's the idiot that is going to take their kids to Vegas when they need some time for themselves?
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
is the,
Exactly. If you need time away from your kids, don't bring them. Look. Yeah. It's simple.
yeah. But
Yeah.
then, like, how do you reverse engineer that into a message that it's palatable, that you're not offending anyone, that it still rings true and it's provocative, right?
Yeah.
So that is my personal sauce to come up with idea campaigns.
I love it. It goes right into. I'm sure you're probably familiar with like the Pixar's rules of storytelling, a game that I love to play with my kids and teams and things like that. What wouldn't happen next? And
Exactly.
essentially, it's the same sort of idea. Let's come up with the most crazy, harebrained thing that could possibly happen next that wouldn't happen, and then
Yep.
let's deduce out of that, like, well, okay, would that not happen? Like, why wouldn't it? And then go from there. So, yeah, a lot
Yep.
of fun with that. So you're talking a lot about this campaign and some of the process that comes along with it. I'm excited to hear what you think about the future of this process and how it's going to continue to change. When we think about like technology and how things are already starting to change with that human interaction of it. What do you think?
Yeah.
I guess what kind of thoughts do you have about like the future? Where can we go, and where are creative directors like yourself looking as we go forward?
Yeah. Like, it's so interesting, Tom. Like, I'm a total geek. I'm like the first guy to like, jump on the tech trends and download the apps, and
Yeah.
like, I'm the first guy to go like, yeah, take my money. I want to use like all the features of this thing. Obviously, like, I'm not alone. I think that the entire world is just like typing their lives off on ChatGPT. They,
Hmm.
like, you don't live in the century if you haven't tried to make an AI selfie of yourself. Like, this thing is like, it's all happening. I think that, look, I'm not just gonna pretend that this is not gonna be disruptive to the creative field, because obviously, like, we're seeing, for example, like, in terms of like illustrations, for example, it's something that I can see how fast, like, it happens. Like, we used to like commission, a certain illustration in a certain
Hmm.
style from an artist, and now you can literally generate that image that you're thinking about in seconds,
Hmm.
right? um but I also think that, like, a little bit of like this, the Luddite mentality of being fearful of technology, is it's silly.
Hmm.
Like, I think that there were so many times that, like, the industry was disrupted by technology, and it turned out to be okay. But I
Right.
think with AI, it's an interesting one, because um, obviously, like, it levels the playing field in many ways, but
Hmm.
exactly because it levels the playing field, then, humans are just like, like, nothing's more incredible than the human mind. And then soon, like, people will find their edge. I think that, like, I don't know, like, let's think about calculators, right? Like,
Hmm.
like, I'm pretty sure that, like, back in the days, like, engineers were like worried as like, oh my god, now, any dumb person can just press a button, and then they can create like this, like, create solve this crazy equation. Yeah, like, so we took that out of the way, but now we
Hmm.
have like critical thinking. We have like, like, other like areas of knowledge that will surface, will become more important. I
Yeah.
think that it
Absolutely.
yeah, like, in creativity, what
Hmm.
what I think is just like, yeah, sure, now we have this technology that you write something, and you see this beautiful image, or, we have this technology that can actually write a script for you. But anyone can do that. And again, like, all AI, and by the way, I'm just assuming that when you said technology, you're talking about AI. So
Yeah. I mean, definitely one of the pieces that we all want to be paying attention to, right?
yeah, so here's what is interesting about AI as well. The AI cannot write the future. Like,
Hmm.
the AI can beautifully replicate beautifully identify an existing pattern and replicate, and they
Hmm.
can, and AI can mash patterns, but AI can never create something completely new.
Hmm.
And an AI interpretation of what human wants, it's only what humans have outputted out in the world.
Right.
And so there is a frontier that doesn't matter how advanced it will get, you take like a while for us to get there. And up until then, I think we all have jobs.
Right. And even to that point, though, I mean, still, even when we get there, if AI is unable to create something brand new, there's still going to be a need for us to use our human minds to create these new things to be able to feed it. And I think to that end, then we really, it brings more value to the creative process. If everybody can go out and create, an image or a campaign or an illustration like we talked about on your own, just using AI, what can't they create? And that's really where we have opportunities as creative types, as the people that can sit down and have these conversations that a computer would never be able to have. Even if we're using a chatbot, it's not the same as having human interaction. And that's where I see a lot of that value there as well. So I'm glad to hear you're thinking about that on the same side of things. I like to bring those two pieces of conversation together as you think about what the future of Las Vegas is and how that all spins into the same idea of what's coming and how do you see that for the LVCVA? What do you look like as the future of this destination or this indulgence, as you said?
Yeah, like, look, the last time that I was in Vegas, I was like in the car driving by the sphere, the construction of the
Mm-hmm.
sphere.
Yeah.
And I thought to myself, um, if uh, uh, if aliens, like come to this planet, I really hope they come to Vegas first, because they would see because I feel like Vegas is the biggest demonstration of what humans can do
Mm-hmm.
as a civilization. Like, and I'm not talking about the superficial aspects of it, like all the glitz and the lights and
Mm-hmm.
everything, but just the sheer fact that like Las Vegas was like created like where it is, and all the constructions, that like the human concentration. I
Mm-hmm.
think that it just proves the point that, like, when it comes in the art of like entertainment, and I'm not talking about like like concerts, I'm talking about like everything that entertains the human mind.
Mm-hmm.
I think that nothing is nearly as close to Las Vegas. And
Yep.
I'm not gonna be here selling Vegas to you, because obviously I don't need to. But like, if you go from just like from a slot machine, which I don't gamble, but I'm fascinated by just watching how it evolved through time. But
Mm-hmm.
then the notion that is just like, yeah, sure, there's a bunch of IMAX theaters around the world, so let's just create a true 360-degree theater. And like the things that I feel like that Las Vegas dare to do,
Mm-hmm.
um, it is completely intrinsic to the advancement of technology. And
Yeah.
I think that it's me as a creative, like with the task of like selling the notion of Vegas to the rest of the world. I mean, like, look, what else could a creative ask for, right? Like, it's basically a product that I don't have to convince anyone from buying it. I just need to remind them of.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah,
yeah,
it's
it
amazing.
is. It is.
Vegas has seemed to become this, or maybe it always has been, this confluence of innovation and imagination, where if we can imagine it, at some point, the innovation will come along and we'll be able to create it and bring it to life. And it's now become this entire city where anything seems possible. And that's just going to continue to come forth. I'm looking forward to seeing where that goes, especially knowing that we've got brilliant minds such as yours that are working on how this will continue to evolve. It's exciting for all of us to be able to see what comes up with the future. I'm curious, as we look forward, you and R&R actually have a big anniversary coming up, as you guys are in the 50th anniversary of R&R. And I'd love to hear your thoughts on just the anniversary itself and what do you guys have planned?
Um, yeah, like look, I'm gonna talk about about the people of R&R. Like R&R, like it's it is a carbon copy of, I think, of Billy Valiciati's, like, persona. I mean, like that man, has done so much,
Mhm.
and he has like this, just like this fearless approach to like writing, like history. And I think that, like obviously R&R has been involved with LVCVA, the Las Vegas branding, since the beginning of times. I do think that, like one thing that I identify with Billy is like both of us were like never satisfied. We're always interested on the next shiny object,
Mhm.
and that keep us excited. We're always excited about what comes next. I do think that like I was very lucky to come into the conglomerate in a very interesting time,
Mhm.
because on at LVCVA with Steve Hill, Kate Wick, Colleen Yoshida, like that is an amazing team to work with too. Like I feel in a very positive way, we're all megalomaniacs. We
Yeah.
all want to make something great. We all want to, like now with everything that is about to happen with Vegas, F1 coming to Vegas, Super
Yep.
Bowl being hosting Vegas. I mean, like, look, I don't even know like what the future is gonna look like, but it's gonna be definitely bigger and more exciting. And it's really interesting to be part of it. I think that it's, like in the on the note of never being satisfied. I think that like some people, myself included, before I even have any deeper context of R&R in Las Vegas, I used to think like, oh yeah, R&R is that agency from Vegas that did that really good campaign in the past. But it's not. It's much more than that. R&R business also, like it's last year we had an incredible year. I think that this year, uh like we are onboarding, like, incredible new brands to our roster.
Mhm.
We're hiring at a breakneck speed, bringing talent from, like big network agencies, both from LA and New York. I'm really excited with what comes next.
Yeah, there's a lot of great stuff coming out. Gudo, you've given us a lot of great things to think about today. I mean, just even looking back at some of my notes, I really love the message that you've got around authenticity and the idea that no one in the world is better at being you than you. So be you. And I think that's a great message for all of us to be thinking about as we look forward. And really, I love this idea of Vegas being an indulgence and an experience there. I loved hearing about your thoughts on where you get that creative process and being really focused on an honest business objective, as well as having the opportunity to really look into the truth around both the human interaction and the brand itself. And I really think it's a great challenge for all of us, as you just mentioned here, to be fearless and really go out there and understand that we are at this confluence of imagination and innovation. And if we can go out and be fearless, we can create anything that we put our minds to. So, Gudo, with that, I will say thank you very much for all of your thoughts and insights. This has been fantastic. I cannot wait to see what you and the team at R&R continue to come up with into the future. We look forward to keeping an eye on that. And in the meantime, I'll say thank you one more time for joining us. And thank you to all of our listeners for joining us today, as we had a great conversation here, and we've got more coming up. We'll have plenty more as we look into the rest of the season here. Stay tuned, as we'll be bringing on some big names. We'll have Shelly Palmer joining us here. As you can see, we've got big conversations around his book and some of the Met Academy stuff that he's doing. Great things to come. Vegas is onward and upward as we go into a very exciting year. Thank you for joining us here with What Happens in Marketing. Take care.